Hello, good evening.
Hi.
How are you, Samantha? How are
I'm
you?
good. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Been busy day, doing
Yeah.
around about 3 or 4 interviews and everything.
Yes. Well, I can see that you've been busy. I've seen that you've been doing a couple of singers. I saw Bono, uh,
Yeah,
the YouTube Bono person, and also the Elvis, the person who sang lots of Elvis songs. Isn't that
oh
correct?
yeah, oh
Yeah.
yes, yeah, Elvis is, yeah, I love Elvis.
Yes.
Anyway, why I brought you on for is this.
Yes.
There's a lot of talk about Black Lives Matter, okay?
Mhm.
And I have got loads of, I have got a lot of friends who are colored people and from
Mhm.
all different religions, and I find it very difficult to understand why people are so hatred in this world, while they be horrible to black people, basically.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess in this case, black people are the focus because of what's happened to George Floyd.
Yeah,
But I think it's loads of different factors. And, um, you would say, some people might have this hatred, and why is it directed towards black people? I think it's directed towards people who are just different from that actual person, so it's not necessarily a color thing, and if anything it's not necessarily a religion thing. It's just that I am me and you're not the same as me, so you're not part of my tribe, therefore I see you as the enemy, kind of
right,
thing.
okay,
And it's
okay,
just trying to understand who that person is. That's what I
right,
believe.
okay, okay. Yeah. See, the trouble is, so we live in the world now where you know it's so difficult when people don't get on. If you if race don't people just don't get on. If you're black, white, Asian, whatever. We live in a world where there's so much hatred in color.
Okay. I think also what we also need to consider is some countries have a colonial past. So you'll have people like like Great Britain had the colonies, France had colonies, Portugal had colonies, Spain. They were in command of different countries. Obviously even the Romans, do as the Romans, because they were had their kingdoms wherever they went. So they saw people in those different countries perhaps as savages, as the people who were perhaps less intelligent. And now, because that was then, and now because of Western civilization and people just integrating into society, you still have people who've got that kind of old traditional colonial way of thinking. So
Yeah,
that's why they'll look at black people and say, well, I've got a load of black friends, but I wouldn't want my sister to go out with one.
yeah,
There's still that kind of stigma because
yeah,
we're different.
yeah. But
But
but you're
I
not.
don't
But
think
you're not.
we're not essentially, we're not. My husband is white, and he's English, but when we first started dating 18 years ago, his mum said to him, I don't want that black girl in my house. I'm never going to have her in my house. And he waited at least 9 months before he sprung a surprise and said, my mum's ready to meet you. And
Yeah,
literally brought me to her house. She came home from work and met me, and she didn't say anything, but we found out 6 years later that she didn't know I was going to be in her house, and I didn't know that she didn't know. But she died. Bye.
Bye.
Emma,
Sorry.
she passed away, but before she passed away, she saw me as her daughter. So she grew up in a village. There was not any black people there, so she just didn't know about black culture. She didn't know about black people. But by the time she passed away, she saw me as part of her family, her flesh and blood, someone who she wanted to marry her son.
Yeah.
So it's just getting people to sort of like understand that we're not really that different, as you
No.
say.
Yeah, you're not different. I when I was around about 23, I had a black girlfriend, and to me, she was just a person. You know what I mean? And she was really lovely. She was a really lovely person. She was passionate. She was everything. And the trouble is, but my friends, I lost my friends because I was going out with a black girl.
Uh,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. Well, I mean, I had a white boyfriend when I was 15, and I remember going into the local McDonald's, and somebody threw their drink over him. Somebody else spat at me and said I was a whore because I was going out with this white guy, and when it was a black person, I didn't even know them. And then also this lady who came up to me, was the same age as my mum, and she said to me, well, your mum never mixed your blood, so you going out with this white guy, don't mix hers. So basically, just saying, drop the white guy, stick with your own. But it's not about a color thing. It's about, do I complement this person, this soul, and does this person complement me?
Yeah.
So I personally don't look at color, but the thing is, I've experienced racism in my life, whereas my husband hasn't. And
Right.
even now, after 18 years together, I might say something to him, and I'm like, "Well, actually, yeah, I've experienced something like that." And he's like, "No, they don't think like that anymore, but people do."
They do.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
as we've seen with like George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, you have more white people who are more open, and that's the more of the younger people, or we have more interracial couples. Be it black, be it Asian, be it Oriental, any ethnic minority, but we have more of that now than we did like 30 years ago. You
Yeah.
won't be able to have a program like Love Thy Neighbor on now, where people is like saying, "Oh, you coon next door."
Yeah.
You won't be
Yeah.
able to have that kind of program on the television now, because
Yeah.
even some of the white people will not accept it. And I
No.
find that there's more white people who might stand up and say, "Oh, this is not acceptable. You're offending a black person." Sometimes before even a black person even realizes that there's something racist going on, because we're so used to it, it
Yeah.
goes over our head.
What kind of racism did you get then?
Oh, well, you see, my mum, she worked at, a great big supermarket. She worked at Marks and Spencer's. So she used to come home and keep saying to me things like, "Oh, you got to watch out, these people, because I'm black, they're doing this to me, at work, I'm not getting the same opportunities." And I'd say to her, "Look, you've got a chip on your shoulder." And then one day I went for a job, and I was down to the last two, the shortlisted for the last two. And the agency told me, "Well, I'm so sorry you didn't get the job." And then then that was on a Friday. The following Tuesday, I got a phone call to say, "Oh, well, they'd like to offer you the job." And I said, "Well, last week he said I wasn't a good fit. Why am I a good fit today?" She goes, "Well, I don't know. The lady they selected didn't come back the next day." So I thought, okay, so I've gone from not being a good fit to you can have the job. So I said, well, if he really wants me to have this job, then this person who interviewed me can ring me up and tell me why now I'm a good fit. So he essentially said, "Oh, the lady who we selected looked like somebody who used to work in the company before. And I thought that she would be like her. And obviously her personality was not the same." So I said, "Okay, thank you very much for being so transparent." So I took the job. But 3 months later, I found out from another colleague that he had actually said, "I can't give her the job. She's black. I've never
Yeah.
been around black people before. I don't
Yeah.
know if I could work with them." But you see, it was still that ignorance thing. But because of his way of thinking and because he was the decision maker, essentially, I didn't get the job. until the girl got up and walked off. So then he realized actually it was more, there was more than just a color thing. It was about personality. And when I actually went to hand in my resignation after a couple of years, he was the first person who was very upset. So it's
mm,
just really introducing our culture to people who are not used to it. However, now on the television, you see a lot of Black culture, and it's like very negatively portrayed in a lot of aspects. We're
mm,
more than just athletes, we're more than just bus drivers, we're more than just nurses, and we're more than just, you know, some yardie who's come over from the Caribbean, sort of being gung ho with a knife. We're
yeah,
actually, you know, there's more to us than all these stereotypical things.
yeah. Because there's a lot of people out there who will say, well, why are you coming in this country for? You don't belong here. I bet you had that, didn't you? I bet you had that. I bet you.
Well, I have had in some cases go back to your country, but also I think as well, I've lived in different countries, and it is, I think it's still a colonial thing, Steve. It's because I lived in France, and obviously they have a lot of French African
Yeah,
colonies,
yeah, yeah,
and they've
yeah,
got some colonies, or some, they used to have colonies and territory overseas in the Caribbean, like Martinique and Guadeloupe. So when I lived in France, I could be at the till, I just want to buy a baguette, and I'd be at the in front of the till, and this lady, one time she served the person next to me this side, then next to me that side, then next to me this side, and I was there with this just long baguette waiting to pay about 4 francs for this bit of bread, and she wouldn't serve me. So I kept saying, "Oh, excusez-moi, madame,"
mm,
and she was like just ignoring me. And then
yeah,
I turned around and I said to her, I said, "Excuse me, but I'd like to buy this bread. What do I need to do to pay for it?"
mm,
Once I spoke English, she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, madam. So sorry." And she took the money. And then she said, "Oh, are you American?" And I said, "No, I'm not American. I'm English." I said, "Does it matter?" I said, "When you thought that I was a French Black person, you wouldn't serve me. But now you think that I'm a tourist, you're being very nice." I said, "It's very rude." And I experienced that a lot.
yeah,
So, a lot of people, it's like they think, well, the French immigrants, or the French Africans, or the French Caribbean, they're just here to sponge off our society. And I think sometimes there's a lot of that in England. Not so much now, but definitely, there was a time when it was like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember when I used to watch some documentaries on slavery, and they used to use black people for slaves and stuff.
Well, if you think essentially we were nothing but cattle, we were just possessions,
Yeah,
And my husband sometimes likes to, and I say likes to, not likes to, but he reminds me that even though the white man took the black man out of Africa, that as they had made some deals with some black tribes who then went on to sort of steal other tribes and sell them on to the
yeah,
white guy. But then when they were on the boat, if they, if they got sick, or if they felt that they had too much weight, then they would just throw people off the boat. I mean, who would do that? Because they just think, well, what we need to offload some cargo and just
mhm,
throw human beings into the water, and just be treated as stud, be treated like
yeah,
horse, be treated like cows, be, oh, well, we can put these two together and breed them up. Oh, this is a really fine young buck, we'll breed him with this other woman. So,
yeah,
all these things were brought into our culture. And also the way that things were eaten as well. We had a lot of salted food introduced to our diet in those slavery days. So lots of people were eating a lot of salted meat, salted fish,
mhm,
which essentially was then, as it was introduced into our diet, it now leads to a lot of high numbers of diabetes, and certain diseases that are prolific with Afro-Caribbean or African ethnicity, but not prolific in white. So it's like
mhm,
400 odd years ago, 500 years ago, this way of living was introduced to us, and we're still paying the price of it now, 500 years
yeah.
later,
But why?
through our diet.
but why? Why are you paying the price? You shouldn't be, should you?
Well, no, I mean, obviously, we're not the only ethnicity that was made slaves. You've got the Jews that they also suffered, and also even if it was like Christians that were persecuted at one point,
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
yeah,
So yeah, so it's just depending on who is the persecutor, and that gives the reason why. But it's always religion, it's always money, it's always somebody thinking that they're better than somebody else.
of course it is, and no one's better than anybody. We're all
That's right.
equal. We're all equal.
So that's
Do you
it.
do you have children at all?
I've got stepchildren and they're both white, so I don't have my own children.
Ah,
Yeah.
right. Because why I mentioned that for? Because I just want to, because I just thought that you might have get problems, at school. They might have got problems at school or anything.
No, I don't
No,
have that kind of issue. No,
no.
no. But I did have my stepson. As I say, he's white. I remember when he was 11, but he came home and said that he had a fight with somebody at school because they saw that his stepmother was black, and they were calling me funny names.
Mm,
And so he didn't like that. So in my defense and in my honor, he entered into a fight. That's not happened again and not happened since, but that was about maybe 10 years ago. So
yeah, yeah,
I think nowadays with the way how black music is entered into culture, um, people are more exposed to the culture, and people try to mimic the culture. They might want to put their own little white stamp on it, but half of these songs and the way that how black culture has influenced music and dance and fashion, it's made having black people around more acceptable. But there's
yeah,
still going to be some people who think old school.
yeah, yeah. Well, we can't change it, can't we? We've got
Mm.
old school in our churches today.
Well, I
People
mean,
do want to move on.
yes, well, I mean, church, I mean, I don't necessarily want to dwell too much on religion, but it's obviously, with church, we had the people who were sent out on missions to sort of teach people about Christianity and teach them about how not to be savage. Yet
Mm,
these same Christian peoples were then taking them out of their homeland and then making them, servants and slaves, and thinking that they were lesser human because that's what they were told at the time. But we
yeah,
were the one that kept the religion. They still, because I think we are all humans are created to
yeah,
worship, God or your higher power, whatever you choose. I'm a Christian, so I choose to worship, Jehovah. So, and that was introduced to many different black people, and it still goes on now. That's why we've got black gospel music or your Negro spirituals.
yeah.
So. Mm.
Yeah, I love the community London Community Gospel Choir.
Yeah, well, there's
I love,
many gospel choirs, but I mean, like, we shouldn't think of gospel as being the word that describes black,
yeah,
religious music. The word gospel means the message. So
yeah, yeah,
it could be gospel music, could be a rock song that's talking about the love of God. It could be a country and western song. It's just like you've got gospel is the message. It's not the type of music, but people's
yeah,
misunderstanding of that would then say, oh well, the London Gospel Community Choir, well, that's black gospel music. No,
yeah, yeah,
it's just music spreading the message.
yeah. What I want to talk about is employment because I read the other day that 99% out of 100 people who are black go for jobs, but the trouble is the white person actually gets a job before the black.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is something that's happened to me before, where I've gone for a job and I didn't actually get the job because of the color of my skin. And
Yeah,
that's when I actually was told about it. So I can't imagine the times when I actually went and I applied for a job and didn't get it. You know, the way how I spoke, I mean, I didn't fare very well at school. I went to an all-girls school, and so I wasn't really around a lot of black people when I was at school.
Right.
So there's like 7 black students out of 700 in my school at the time when I first went there. So when I used to come out of you know, a school and maybe hang out with people, I used to get the mickey taken out of me by you know, people from my culture. I was called a coconut. I was called, you know, the bounty, and so this is from my own people, right? Because I spoke too posh. So as I grew up, I knew that my voice was different. So I could make a phone call and apply for a job
Mm,
and say, you know, well, yeah, my name is Samantha. You know, I'd like to apply for this particular role, you know, and then turn up for the interview, and they were like, oh, you don't look like how I expected you to look. And I'm like, well, what do you want me to do? Do I need to speak with a Caribbean accent for you to know the difference between a black person and a white person? And
yeah.
then, you know, you can see, I mean, somebody told me the other day, she went for a job, and she was at the 3rd stage of an interview. So she got through 2 stages where everybody loved her, but one of the actual directors who she wanted to go and work with then was in the stage 3, and he just took umbrage, and he was like very racist straight away. And she didn't get the job because of that one person. Yet 5
Mm,
people were quite happy with her work and her experience. So yes, it does happen.
yeah. So what would you say to these people? What would you like to see many changes or what with the
Well, I
government?
mean, well, of course, I want to see changes. I want to, because I know that it exists. You know, you are aware that it exists. You know, you're highlighting this. You know, there's some people who are BLM'd out. They don't want to really hear about it anymore. You know, this thing with George Floyd happened how many months ago? We're moving on, but you know, you can see how, you know, people initially reacted to Megan, you know, albeit whatever she's done before they kind of got to know who she was or what she was like. You know, she was, you know, the one that was going to taint the royal blood because of the blackness in her, you know. And you've got people who um, you know, who might be portrayed in a particular way, and they have a certain expectation provided because they say, well, what do you expect? They're black. What do
Mm,
I want to see different? You know, is that, you know, I want to see that people are accepted for who they are. And I still think that we're quite a long way away from it. But this lockdown and COVID-19 period has given people a lot of time to reflect, and it's not just um, no, well, I want to say it's not just at BLM or George Floyd or what have you. It's a time of reflection. It's a spirit
mm,
of revival. It's like a tidal wave of you have a chance to make a change. Like the
yeah.
Bible speaks of different things, and especially as like the end of days. Okay, so I might be getting super spiritual for some people, but some of these things that are happening today were already predicted in the Bible. And
Mm,
you know, some people might say, well, you know, well, she's just talking rubbish, it's a crazy thing. Well, you might want to believe in Nostradamus. Well, I want to believe in what the Bible says. And the
mm,
Bible already predicted all this mayhem, especially with the weathers, especially with false prophets, especially with about things happening that could be happening out of the UK, you know, and certain governments and principalities that are going to turn things around. So we have to fight those spiritual elements that are
mm,
happening in that realm, so that we can and protect ourselves, so that in this, you know, this world we will start to see change. We have
mm,
to start learning how to love each other and accept each
yeah.
other,
Yeah.
and accept people for who they are, and not
Yeah.
looking for the differences, but look to see how people are the same. And a lot of people talk about, well, who's my tribe? My tribe is not just black people. My tribe are the people who I can resonate with, and
Yeah.
they resonate with me.
Mm,
I could speak to you, Steve. You could tell me that you're a Christian. You're my brother in Christ. I could speak to another girl. She might not be a Christian, but we have an
mm,
affinity together. She's my sister from another mister. It's a
mm.
spiritual thing, and that's what we need
Yeah.
more of.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about accepting, isn't it?
Yeah, it's acceptance. It's about love. It's about
Mm,
not what I was criticizing somebody without looking at yourself and trying to say, well, I'm much better than them.
yeah.
One day you'll have a great day and they'll have a bad day, and then it will be reversed. You better hope
Mm,
that that person's there for you to help you, pep you up, or just support you, and you be there to
mm.
support them. That's what it's about. It's all about the love.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all about the love. It's like when I see, I'm a Christian person. I believe in I values, right?
Mhm.
So what I believe is this: that everybody is. We should not judge each other. We should
Mm.
not kind of think of worse of each other. If someone does wrong, okay, right? If they repent about it and get on with their lives, that's fine. But
Mm.
when they go around judging people and calling people, names, abuse, or
Yes.
or calling them different names and stuff like that, then that's the problem. What
Yes.
society's got.
Mm. Well, it's sticks and stones,
Yeah,
but kind of thing. But what we're entering into a culture now where names seem to hurt people because,
yeah,
snowflake or whatever it is you want to call it, millennials. We're seeing such a high level of young people who are deciding to take their own lives. Because because of social media, you've got the good parts where social media might bring people together, long lost families and what have you, and then you've got the bad parts where you've got maybe the dark web, or you've got people who are just literally predatory, looking for to groom young girls and boys, or to actually find people who they can murder. So you've got all this going on in this world, and people lives are literally on social media from a very young age, and if they don't feel that sense of acceptance, if they don't receive 100 likes for something, or if they receive one person who says, well, you know what, we don't like you at school, go kill yourself, these days they
yeah,
actually do. And it's amazing how just through the strength of maybe one or two people who are in agreement saying we don't like you, how that affects one young person. And so we just need to sort of make sure that they know that they are loved, really, and that there's a
mm,
better way.
yeah, yeah. It's like I heard a song once from Charlie Lansborough. He's a Christian. I went to his concert. Charlie Lansborough.
No, I don't know him.
Yeah, and sorry, I got a bit of a cold at on.
That's all
And
right.
what he was saying in a break, he was saying you'd be lucky to have five friends,
Mm,
five true friends,
yes. Oh yes. Yes. Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I said to him afterwards when I went to get his autograph, I said to him, yeah, you got five friends, but even those five friends will probably turn you around, but there's one friend you want, and that's
Yes.
God
And
Himself,
that's God.
because He
Yeah.
never let you down. And that
Yes.
was it. So, but last couple of questions. Um, do you ever get abused in the streets?
Never. Not now.
No.
Uh, do I? Not now. No. When I was
No.
younger, I used to. I'm from Buckinghamshire, and so I remember. I used to um, get people. I've been called monkey, just walking into a pub. I've had people saying, how can you serve that black girl before you serve me? Because apparently, oh, I shouldn't be served first.
Yeah.
I've had somebody say to me things like, I can smell burnt chocolate here, and apparently I'm the odor of burnt chocolate. And then I've had like loads of, I was, when that happened, I was with six white guys, all of them like about 6 foot tall, looking for this man who apparently ran out the pub when he realized that I wasn't alone. But my husband is 6'5". He's white. I'm very protected. He's the one who would get more abuse than me, because people want to challenge him because of his height, and that would be another
Yeah,
program for you, Steve,
yeah,
because basically it's not really a color thing. It's just, as I say, it's when people are different. So
yeah,
as he's like 6'5" and looks a little bit, muscular, he would get challenged in pubs, like let's
yeah,
fight you. So he would get more abuse than me. So
yeah.
nowadays I feel very protected and I'm very secure.
I'm glad. I'm glad about that.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
Samantha, thank
Yes,
you very much for joining me.
you're so welcome, Steve. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And it's really been a pleasure. And I'm sorry, it wasn't about George Floyd. It wasn't about about any other thing. What it was about was that I want life to be equal.
Mm.
I want to live in a world where there is just kind of peace, love, and that's my message. What I do on here. All
Yeah,
my,
well, this is your platform to do that, and I think you use it well. We just want to spread the love. It's not a color thing, it's a spiritual love thing. And once
yeah,
people start to understand that, then we won't see the differences, like the physical difference or the color difference. We'll just see people as lovely souls.
yeah. Thank you very much once again, and
You're
see you
welcome.
soon. Bye bye.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you. Bye
Bye
bye.
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 Does it really matter if you're white, if you're black, if you're Asian or Jewish? At the end of the day, we're all human, and we all need to get on. Life is too short, really. You know, life is about living, and whatever we do from now on, starting from today, start looking at people not to be judgmental to people, but show them love. Because as you show them love, they will show you love back. Have a good night, and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.